Hello, everyone. Welcome. For today's study, Spiritism Inspiring Lives and the theme Embrace Discomfort. For us to start our meeting today, I would kindly invite everyone who is with us already for us to have some moments of introspection in order to harmonize our minds, our hearts, bring our attention in this special moment for us. For those who would like to close your eyes, please feel free to do so. As we are looking within ourselves, realizing that we are all essentially loving beings in evolution, learners, learning every day, every moment about ourselves, facing different experiences in this journey, which is always blessed with love that comes from God. And in this moment, we start by saying thank you for everything that we have, for all of those who are with us, for all the experience that we attract in order to potentialize ourselves, stimulating the good within, the love within, and in that way, feeling united through the currents of brotherhood in a loving way, feeling embraced, all of us who are in the physical body and all of those who are without. United, we start today's meeting, today's study. So once more, we say welcome to everyone. It is always a pleasure to be together and reflecting about Spiritism. And today we have the pleasure to have with us Frederico Gouveia, who lives in New York, in the United States, and he will be facilitating the theme for us today, Embrace Discomfort. Frederico already has been with us previously and is a friend within the Spiritist community and beyond it. So all of us from the Spiritist Psychological Society, we welcome you, and in that way we hand it over to you, Frederico. It's up to you.
Thank you, Evanice, and hello, everyone from the Spiritist Psychological Society and those around the world that are watching. It's great to be back here and have a conversation, a reflection about embracing discomfort, a topic that touches every single human being who is incarnated on this planet. And as Evanice mentioned, I am going to be talking about several aspects of discomfort from a Spiritist perspective, but as well as from areas that touch me specifically, like music, also family constellations, and ways that we can integrate these different reflections into a comforting takeaway here today. And I always like to start my conversations or end my conversations with music as a demonstration. And I'd like to offer the first piece that we're going to play with my friend here, the violin. And before I play it, I'm going to invite you to do a contemplation, a reflection on what the music is expressing its melody. The composer is Christoph Gluck, and he's one of the most famous composers of the early 18th century. He lived from 1714 to 1787, and he was very famous for his operas. The most famous of his operas was based on the Greek myth Orpheus and Eurydice. Orpheus and Eurydice has a story that deals with the afterlife, with separation of a loving couple and a sort of soulmates that, because of tragic circumstances, they become separated. And given Orpheus's unconditional love to Eurydice, he embarks in a journey to the underworld or the spirit world in order to find her, rescue, so that they can be reconciled once again. However, because it's a Greek tragedy, it doesn't really have necessarily a happy ending. It has a discomforting quality throughout. And there is a moment in which Orpheus is reflecting on the sadness of his loneliness. And I truly think this is a moment that Gluck, the composer himself, was remembering a personal story of his life and was able to mirror that pain of the loneliness, the sadness, the separation from a loving person. And he was able to express that in his creative genius through the music. So this is a piece that has become famous called The Meditation, and it's a melody from the opera Orpheus and Eurydice from Christoph Gluck's composition from the early 1800s. I'm going to get my violin. There is a piano accompaniment. I invite you to, given this preparation, I'd like to invite you to use your imagination and have the music take you on that visual journey of what it was like in the composer's heart when he was composing these melodies. Here we go. Okay. So now looking at the slides that we're going to present, this is what we just heard, the mythology of Orpheus and Eurydice. Now, embracing the discomfort is the name of our conversation, and it's going to be a journey through Spiritism, family constellations, classical music, and gospel passages. Now, first, let's define the concept. What is discomfort? And there's different kinds. There's emotional, physical, mental, and even psychical discomfort. The emotional one, of course, we are bombarded by different sensations based on how we feel about a situation, about someone, about a place. And immediately our heart starts to beat at a different rate. We may feel tears, we may feel rage. Physical discomfort obviously comes from our instinct of survival, and the biology is impacted anytime that there is a harm done to our physical body. Mental discomfort is probably one of the most delicate ones that we still don't have a firm grasp on. And it impacts everything we think about. And it becomes so poignant to some people that unfortunately a lot of them resort to actual self-harm in order to soothe the level of mental pain that they're feeling. Many times you hear individuals in this situation say that sometimes they will go through that extreme step in order to soothe the mental discomfort. So it just gives different levels of perception of what a discomfort pain can mean. And lastly, psychic, and those that are mediums or have more of a keen sensibility from their mediumistic faculties will be able to resonate with this type of discomfort. When we enter a place or when we greet someone, we may feel the impact of their vibration, their frequency, and that will immediately cause something to reverb in us that could be discomfortable or uncomfortable. Carl Jung has a very powerful quote that says, "No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots are down in hell." And that's the point of our journey here on the earth, be able to deepen our own roots in our self-knowledge. And that process does involve coming in contact with our shadows, the things that we don't want to face, so that we can actually embrace, overcome them, and in that process be able to transform something that was originally painful into a strength, and therefore give that tree the power to grow to heaven. And there's a very beautiful passage in the Garden of Gethsemane when Jesus is having a premonition that the end is coming for him through the crucifixion. And he kneels down and he prays to the Father in heaven, and he is weeping, he's crying, he's experiencing a type of anguish that all of us can empathize with, and it's part of the reincarnated condition. And he says, "Father, please take this cup away from me, but let your will be done above my own." So that encapsulates the mindset that we ought to be able to learn when we are faced with a type of discomfort. A broad acceptance, a radical acceptance, if you will, of the situation. And right after that, the quieting of the heart and the appeasing it so that we don't try necessarily to change that current reality at that moment, but by embracing through acceptance, we are able to work with that discomfort and use it as a harness to jolt us to a higher place. If we go here to this example that I'm going to draw, I had the privilege of interviewing this man named Christian Sundberg. His podcast is available on my channel on YouTube, Spirit Reflections. He became famous for writing several books, and his particular story is quite beautiful. Christian recalls vividly his pre-birth memories. Now, I mention this here because the reincarnated condition that we are under temporarily is one of discomfort. We see, as we study in Spiritism, that the natural habitat for the spirit is the spirit realm, and the unnatural or the uncomfortable habitat is the temporary body of flesh in the reincarnated condition in the three-dimensional world we live in. And so by being alive here, we are naturally in a state of discomfort already. And the story of Christian draws a powerful contrast between the two realities. I'm going to briefly tell what he told me in his podcast and also in his books that are available online. Christian, when he reached the age of 30, after finding out about meditation, he began to go on to deeper and deeper meditations, and he started to remember vividly the reincarnation agreement that he forged prior to incarnating. And he takes us to a place where he's in the spirit realm, surrounded by his mentors, and he is deliberating the different details that he wants them to agree for him to reincarnate. And he tells us that he devises this a very, very deep reincarnation with several milestones and several obstacles that he felt so empowered and enthusiastic to face and to overcome. And the guides, the mentors, upon seeing his enthusiasm and his joy and the passion behind the case that he was pleading for himself, they agree to sign off on that reincarnation. And so he says that he doesn't remember how long it takes after that meeting took place when the mentors agreed for him to undertake that reincarnation with those specific set of circumstances. He's taken to a place where he's preparing himself to reincarnate. And then after that, he recalls diving deep, 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 deep into a dark place. He says that at that moment, he recalls being already inside his future mother's womb. And as a fetus in his mother's womb, he mentioned that the frequency and the vibration was so much heavier. The place was so much darker compared to where he was in the spirit realm, that at one moment he was so overcome by panic, fear, that he started to regret the decision he had made. And he was so terrified. And that kept haunting him for such a powerful period of time in such an intense way that he finally said, I can't do this. And he suddenly did it in such a powerful way that he broke free, provoking a miscarriage on the mother and returning to the spirit realm. And when he comes back to the spirit realm, his guides are looking at him with a deeply upset and disappointed look. He could feel the energy. And they were lamenting his lack of faith, his lack of courage at causing this burst, which provoked a miscarriage and had him return to the spirit realm. And by the way, this just goes to show the concept of free will that we have, that remains an integral part of our human beings, our human evolution, our spiritual evolution. But at that moment, he's there facing his guides. He's naturally regretful of what he did, because the minute he came back to that higher dimension, he felt a sense of relief. But at the same time, he remembered where he was, what he had agreed to do, and why he basically recoiled in front of that challenge. And so his guides tell him, listen, we had mapped out a very complex existence for you. Unfortunately, that is no longer available. You're going to have to reincarnate under different circumstances. And so he has to wait a period of time, which for him felt like a long time in the spirit realm, until the guides and circumstances and the whole organization of a future reincarnation, plan B this time, could be completed. And so when the time came, the guides approached him and said, okay, now you're going to reincarnate, but all of those different milestones and goals that you were going to face and you're going to reach and overcome, we're not going to provide those anymore. We're going to have a more self-contained, if you will, reincarnation. And he agrees to it. He says, okay, I think I tried too much. I went too far. And so he has the same experience of going deep into a different frequency, a much harsher vibration, a very, very dark, very dense environment. And he remembers again, okay, I am back in a womb. I am in the process of becoming an embryo here, and I'm going to reincarnate in a few months' time. Well, now he had a different understanding of it, and he had recently had the experience of provoking a miscarriage by leaving. So he stays the course there. He agrees, he accepts the painful discomfort of being in the cocoon of the mother's womb, and he reincarnates. And Christian Sundberg is that spirit that story comes from. So he says that throughout his first 30 years of his life, he had no particular connection to religious experience, to spirituality. He just sort of lived a normal life. But when he reached his age of 30, he began to turn to these topics and began to question, began to search. And it was through the process of meditation that he began to remember these powerful memories about his agreement to reincarnate in the conditions that he did. So I highly recommend you check him out online, and it'll give us a great example of some of the contrasts between our life in the spirit realm as healthy spirits versus the incarnated condition as we know it, full of discomfort. Another example I highly recommend that you check out is also available on YouTube. It's this channel called Coming Home. And if you haven't yet seen it, I highly recommend you check out. It's two twin brothers that founded the channel, and they are therapists. They're counselors. And what they did is they've compiled 30-minute documentaries of interviews with people who experienced near-death experiences. Are we seeing the slides? I don't know if we're seeing the slides here. Oh, there we go. Thank you. And they're in every single near-death experience that I've watched, which are very beautifully produced, like a short movie, and they're very touching. One of the most beautiful things about this channel, by the way, are the comments. The comment section on each video shows you how many people are going through tremendous amount of grief over the loss of a loved one. Many times parents grieving the loss of their children, and saying that once they saw a particular video in this channel, they were so comforted, they were so relieved. It gave them so much hope that their child or their family member lives on and is in a much better place. But a particular curiosity here is there is a common theme to every single near-death experience that they show in these videos, is that when the person realizes that they are outside their body and they start going to a place in the spirit realm, they report a sense of elation. They're so ecstatic. They feel so free. They can't describe in words the level of freedom, love, peace, and wisdom that they immediately feel. And at the same time, the discomfort that they feel when they return to their physical body, or even when they are in the middle of that journey of insights outside their body temporarily, and they are told by whoever it is that they're talking to, a guide, a mentor, a parent, sometimes a voice that they hear that they can't quite identify, but they perceive to be God or a godlike being, that tells them, okay, your time has not come yet, you need to come back. The discomfort that they feel is immediate. It's almost like, I'm going to be suffocated, I'm going to be taken back to that prison, and they don't want to go. And many times in some of these documentaries that you'll see in the channel, they're kind of pushed to go. They basically don't leave them much choice. They suddenly wake up and they're back in their body. But what's beautiful here is to see that after these NDEs, these individuals have a profound change in their life, a transformation of their priorities, and they begin to many times tell the story to other people, and thereby they encourage, they empower, and they give new hope to those in their community. So I highly recommend you watch this channel. Now, if we take it to Spiritism, the core, in Allan Kardec's first book, the Spirits book, I picked out two examples here. One is the law of destruction that's found on question 728, when Kardec asks the spirits, is the destruction of living beings a law of nature? And they answer, yes, it's necessary for the transformation and renewal which are required for the maintenance of the equilibrium and growth of the physical world. So right here, we see that transformation and renewal imply a type of destruction, imply a type of uncomfortable process that we must undergo, that we have to endure. Endurance is a word that we often associate with athletes, for example, who have tremendous endurance in running a marathon or a triathlon. What does that mean? That endurance is to feel the pain, to feel that it hurts, and yet be able to psych our minds into persevering and breaking through that temporary obstacle or challenge. And our biology responds immediately. Whenever we're able to reach these physical milestones in the example of exercise, our body just releases so many positive endorphins and other hormones and substances. It makes us feel good, makes us feel empowered. People that are going through a lot of challenges, if they work out first thing in the morning, it strengthens their ability to be more resilient, to embracing the discomfort of whatever it is that they're going through during the day. And the second aspect, part of the Spirit's book that I picked out here for us to look at is question 934. How can we neutralize the influence of the wicked or the evil? The answer that the Spirits give to Kardec is by working more zealously for the improvement of your social state. The good have a greater influence than you suppose. The improvement of the masses, the development of intelligence, the gradual disappearance of vice, all of that contribute to raising men above the level of the material condition in which they are often plunged. Here there's a very hopeful future that the Spirits point out to us, is that the material world itself also progresses. And as we spirits are able to spiritualize this material reality, the material reality itself becomes lighter, becomes happier, becomes less of a dark, dense place that Christian Sundberg describes when he takes that plunge into the womb of his mother, preparing himself to reincarnate. And so the answer is working more zealously. And part of working more zealously implies a level of acceptance. And we're going to see that in family constellations, which is a big part of my life nowadays. I've been studying and being a facilitator as a constellations facilitator since 2020. There's a key concept there that is very much connected to Spiritism, which is acceptance. Acceptance of the past as it is, acceptance of the present as it is. And when we're able to truly feel that in every cell of our body, we're able to then work with the circumstances presented to us and advance in a way that doesn't put us in a condition of victim or put us in a condition of rebelling. Trying to rebel because we need necessarily to understand, why am I going through this? Why me? When is this going to end? Why, all of these questions, although they're part of the process and natural, if we just dwell on trying to answer them, we stay stuck in the rational part of our being that is trying to find answers, which may not necessarily bring us the comfort, the release and the satisfaction to soothe the pain. It may just shed more light into the situation, and it could help to accept the situation. But working is the verb that they use here in the answer to question 934. Working more zealously, remembering the concept of endurance, being able to become more physically, spiritually fit, emotionally fit, mentally fit through the hard work to condition ourselves to endure more and more challenges that are going to transform ourselves and be able to give us that level of acceptance so that we can truly embrace discomfort and not let it cause us so much pain that we stop the journey in the middle. There is a passage from the Sermon of the Mount. In one of the Beatitudes, Christ points this out to us, specifically talking about discomfort and pain. He says, "Blessed are those who mourn." In other translations, also it reads, "Blessed are those who are afflicted, for they will be comforted." Comfort is the opposite of discomfort. So, blessed are those who mourn, who are afflicted. What is he truly saying here? Those that are facing, that are acknowledging, that are embracing the current challenge that they're in, and are working with it in order to face and overcome it. When we enter into that mindset, into that state, we immediately get the comfort, the soothing consolation that the spirit realm, the good spirits, the mentors and the guides will shower us with immediately, with that feeling of persevere. We are here with you. We are cheering you on. The opposite of that is when we are rebellious, when anger takes over and we are so exasperated that we cannot accept whatever's going on, and we become powerless to whatever's happening, and therefore we cease vibrating in that frequency of comfort, consolation, and hope. That is the frequency and the state of mind that Christ is exemplifying here in this passage of the Sermon of the Mount. So there is so much that we can say about discomfort, also related to the creative process. When I say creative process, it's us harnessing our spark of creativity, igniting inside of us the power that we have to co-create and be able to materialize our ideas, our dreams, the things that we sometimes are musing about. When we're able to put that into a material manifestation, and if we're able to add beauty to that and be able to co-create those things through artistic ways, whether it's poetry, writing a passage, music, dancing, coloring, painting, whatever it is that can give beauty to that creative demonstration, is in and of itself a healing process as well. And as a classical musician who went to school and studied the lives and the works of some of these famous composers, I notice a very, very common thread, that all of them, no exception, no matter what time that they lived in, no matter the place that they were born, no matter what socioeconomic conditions they had, some of the most brilliant compositions that they gave to the world as their legacy came as a result of tremendous pain, tremendous suffering, a loss, a betrayal, some circumstance that caused them to withdraw for a little bit, go deeply inward, and in that place of tremendous discomfort, find the beauty, the power of music, and through their talents and abilities, transform something painful into a beautiful melody. And this case here, I wanted to highlight, and we could watch a little bit of it, is the Russian pianist and composer Sergei Rachmaninoff. He is very famous for his romantic piano concertos and symphonies. And Rachmaninoff suffered from clinical depression. He lived at a time when Sigmund Freud's work on psychoanalysis and the beginnings of psychology were being implemented in the world. And he had moments in his life when he felt so depressed that he couldn't compose. He basically would lock himself in a room and not produce any work. And someone told him about psychotherapy, and he went to see a therapist. And after seeing that therapist every week for a few months, he was able to go in the therapeutic process and find within himself the things that were causing his depression. And what's beautiful is that one of the most famous compositions that he did, the Second Piano Concerto, Opus 18, was the result of that therapeutic process. So much so that in the opening page of the score, he dedicates this piece to his therapist. Now, I want you to imagine the discomfort, the pain, and the anguish that this individual is feeling, and how the creative process that he put himself through was able to heal not only himself, but as a byproduct, something that he left to the world as a musical legacy that we can see here. I'm going to show you a YouTube video, and I'll ask our friends here to leave this link so that you can watch the whole concerto later. But this is the very end of the concerto, and the music is symbolizing a triumphant moment, a heroic arrival at having overcome a very painful journey. And that's what the music is celebrating in this moment. I'm going to show this, share my screen here. We're going to watch a performance by one of the most famous pianists of the 20th century, Yevgeny Kissin. Let me see if I can share my screen. Yes. And I'm going to share the audio. Here we go. Let's see if something that we can put up. Thank you. What did you think of this piece of music? Love to hear from you in the comments, since it's one of the most precious, triumphant conclusions of a work of classical music. Okay, that's one example. Let's go back to the slides. And another example here is in Ludwig van Beethoven. Now, he was most famous for being very temperamental, and of course, by losing his hearing from an early age. In his mid-30s, he began to lose the most important faculty that he as a composer had, the ability to hear. And that took him to a deep depression, and he even contemplated ending his own life. And yet, through those dark moments, he was able to get the deepest insights into life, his existence, and in the process compose some of the most incredible works of art that we have to this day, including the Ninth Symphony, which is an ode to joy. I love the fact that a person of his temperament, completely deaf, by the time he composed the Ninth Symphony, he couldn't hear anything. Yet being able to compose an entire symphony, which is a hymn to joy, happiness, and inviting people to be lighthearted, to uplift their spirits through the beauty of joy. And he says something here that I put, which I think is very true of the existential condition, not only as an artist, but I think of all of us humans. He says, the true artist is not proud. Why is the true artist not proud? Let's reflect on that. He unfortunately sees that art has no limits. He feels darkly or deeply here how far he is from the goal. And though he may be admired by others, he is sad not to have reached that point to which his better genius only appears as a distant, glaring sun. Now that's Beethoven talking about his own genius. And a lot of the composers that I studied recall that some of the most memorable melodies that they composed came to them in a dream, which tells us that during the hours of sleep, when the physical body is resting and we know that the spirit is free, and roaming around in the spirit realm, that is when those composers received through inspiration those melodies. And yet when they woke up, the transmission or the transferring of that melody from their spiritual brains to their physical ones caused them to feel like they really didn't produce the same level of beauty that they perceived when they were outside their bodies, sleeping. Vivaldi has that examples, Stravinsky, Tchaikovsky, and Wagner, so many other composers state this exact same experience. And here in the case of Beethoven, and not only Beethoven, but anyone who's in the field of arts, I as a musician myself, every time I play the violin, I feel that I did not reach the goal. I feel that I am so far from having expressed the beauty that in my mind I wanted to have expressed. But when it is materialized in a concrete performance, it's never there. It never gives us that same feeling that we've actually achieved it. And so it is a very humbling exercise, and it makes us come to the understanding that we're not there yet, as he says here, that the better genius appears as a distant guiding sun. The spirit appears as a distant guiding sun. We could even say it like that. And so there are so many passages from Beethoven's work that we could highlight here. For example, his Fifth Symphony, which became very famous for having the Morse code equivalent to the letter V for victory. Ta 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 ta, short, 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 long. In Morse code, that translates to the letter V for victory. And why did he do that? Beethoven was fervently against Napoleon's expansion in Europe through the tyranny that he demonstrated. And when he was finally vanquished after they tried to invade Russia, Beethoven was so elated that he composed the Fifth Symphony as a tribute to freedom and victory. And so every movement of the four-movement symphony has the musical theme of ta 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 ta, short, 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 long. I'm going to send our friends here at the British Spiritist Psychological Society. I'm sorry, I'm changing the order. The links to some of Beethoven's works that highlight that, and so you can appreciate what I'm talking about in symphony. And not only was Beethoven making a public statement about a political situation that he was going through and his contemporaries, but he was also going through his process of losing his hearing. And he was determined to face that discomfort, to face that uncertainty, and fight it head on. His temperament was one of not shying away from challenge, quite the opposite, going towards it and really embracing the challenge. And the heroic quality to that is deeply felt in a lot of his compositions. And so I'm a big fan of his, of course. I wanted to end it here and see if there are any questions about what we've shared so far about discomfort in the Spiritist literature, in passages from the Gospel, as a concept in family constellations, and as examples that we saw in music here. If we have any questions, comments, yes.
I have, Frederic, there is Kati Karinas. She said quite true while you were commenting about part of your talk. Quite true, according to my returning experience, except that I was given the choice to return or not. Yet I was helped to make that choice by being shown the distress of my silky small child.
Wow, Katie, what an amazing experience. Wow, thanks for sharing. That's powerful. Yeah, it just goes to show us that we do have the choice, and they're going to support us either way, because ultimately they just want us to learn. The goal is not to suffer, it's just to learn. But many times suffering is the route that we actually are able to internalize the teaching experience. Thank you, Katie. I mean, this is quite a profound experience, and I'm glad you were given the choice. That's really beautiful.
I do have a question or a reflection, if you can help us to develop a bit further. In the stage where we are as beings in evolution, what would be the tools that are available for us to help to deal with our own discomfort experiences from a deeper perspective. We know that they are quite valid and necessary, but we quite often put a very negative weight on it, and that makes it more heavier to go through the experience. So which kind of tools are available that can help us to promote us in these moments?
I know that one that comes to mind immediately is to count my blessings. When I am down and I am in pain, going through anguish or non-acceptance of whatever is going on in a particular situation in my life, I just start to count my blessings and start going down the list of the things I'm grateful for. My physical body, the fact that I have a roof over my head, that there's food on my plate, that there is drinking water, that I'm able to go about my different places in freedom, relative freedom, that I have a family that loves me. And even if they're not here, I lost my father at a young age and I miss him tremendously because he was a brilliant man. But every time I feel that lack, I fill my heart with his memory. And I tell the trillions of cells in my body that I am not fatherless, that my father is alive in me, in all of my cells. And I am grateful for the time that we did have together. And I'm grateful for my talent. So after you go through that list, which can be very long, of things we're grateful for, it just gives us such a feeling of strength that we are surrounded by so many tools to embrace the discomfort, that we start seeing the cup as more full than empty.
Thank you for that, Freddie. Thank you. And I leave it up to you if you want to conclude it. Yes. Okay.
Well, this is all that I actually had prepared for us. I wanted to invite you to. I'm going to give a very shameless plug here, if Venice, if you permit, for people to follow my channel on YouTube, Spirit Reflections, where I do have interviews with people about their personal and spiritual journeys, the tools that they found along the way, and how those tools shaped who they are and the work that they do. And not only that, any composition that I created on the piano or the violin or a musical performance, I uploaded on that channel. So there is a playlist just of classical music performances there that I recommend. I invite you to watch and give me your feedback and your comments, and that support is truly appreciated. I think just to close, I would say that being alive in a reincarnated condition is discomforting, period. There's nothing we can do about that, but we can turn it into beautiful expressions of our eternal nature as spirits that are unconditionally loved, infinitely loved, cared for, and surrounded by all the protection and the resources that we need in order to be victorious. I like the comparison of the word victorious versus victim. And victim in Latin is comprised of the junction of two words, vict, which is the radical for victory, and temor, which is fear. So victim, literally in Latin, if you break down the word, means fear of victory. So when we are fearful of embracing the responsibility of our powerful light and being victorious in that light, we choose to be victims, fear of victory. And so we stay down, we sort of slow down our progress, and we lament. And it's a deep condition of non-acceptance of what is, versus victorious, the triumphant, like Beethoven, the heroic example of facing and overcoming the challenges, in the process transforming the painful discomfort into beautiful expressions of freedom.
Thank you very much indeed. As we're coming close to the end, and I would kindly leave it up to you if you can close the meeting for us today with a prayer, or feel free to choose what you want to do, or perhaps to play some music.
Okay. I wasn't planning to play in the end, but I'll pick up my violin. I'll let it do the closing. Whatever comes up will come up.
I would love that. Yes. Okay.
And I invite you all to vibrate with me, those that are watching live, so that we can co-create a beautiful sound here that can serve as a closing for this reflection.
Thank you very much indeed, Federico. It was
My
a pleasure
pleasure.
to be with you and you sharing your artistic tools with us. I really appreciate that. And also thank all of those for having with us throughout this talk, these reflection moments, which is always a pleasure to be together and enlightening ourselves with what is really valuable and lifts us up in life. For you and your family, Frederic, much peace to you. Hope to see you in another opportunity. Everyone who is with us, much peace too, and I hope to see you all in another occasion. Bye-bye. Take care.